Hello, this is Craig in the Valve Studio, and in my haste to get yesterday's video out, I completely forgot a discussion about the field coil speaker. So let me go ahead and get into that. It's a real short thing. It's probably about 5 minutes long. And hopefully you learn a little bit something about field coil speakers. All right, let's get started. I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it explains how field coil speakers are wired. So if we look at this top image, over on the right hand side we have two coils, the humbucking coil, which is a smaller one, and the field coil, which is a lot bigger one. And those sit on the core inside the basket of the speaker. Here's a schematic of how it's wired into the circuit. The field coil is part of the power supply and acts as an inductor while also generating the magnetic field. And the humbucking coil is wired in series with the speaker's voice coil, and it acts to actually subtract some of the hum out from the creation of the magnetic field. It's really important that you get this wired correctly, because it does have two ways to be wired. One way adds more hum and the other way actually takes it away. So we'll make sure that we get that straightened out before we proceed.
Here's a speaker that came with the amplifier itself. It's a RS electrodynamic speaker. It's an 8-inch speaker, and it is an F8 RS. Its date code is C3413-2. I wasn't able to find much information on how to read these, but this is a pretty old speaker because it's electrodynamic. And the way electrodynamics work is they have a field coil, and that generates, in combination with a magnet down here, a stronger magnetic field. So you run DC current, and this is actually part of the power supply. And let's take a look at this, closer look. Now, I haven't actually done any projects with field coil speakers, so I actually learned a lot on this video here. So if you look at this closely, there's actually 4 wires coming out of this field coil, and I was like, well, wait a minute, this isn't, what is this? It turns out some speakers like this actually have another small coil right here, and this is called a humbucker coil, and you run this in series with the speaker coil itself, and you run those two over to the output transformer, and this one actually takes out a little bit of the hum. So we need a bunch of resistances. We'll go ahead, and I measured all these things here. So there is some stuff written on here, but we didn't actually use this for our information. The coil resistance of the speaker itself is 3.6 ohms. This little humbucking coil is 0.23 ohms. The field coil itself is almost exactly 1,000 ohms. Secondary of the transformer is 0.85 ohms, and the primary works out to be 850 ohms. So with all that, we need one more piece of information. We need to know what the turns ratio is of the output transformer. So I applied a 1 volt AC source to the secondary of the output transformer, and I measured the primary voltage, and that worked out to be 46. So the reflected impedance of a 4 ohms through a transformer with a turns ratio of 46 squared ends up being 8.5K, and we need that for to plot the load line on the plate characteristic to determine, what kind of things, what the performance of this amplifier is going to be before we get actually powered on. So it does look like it's in really good shape. The speaker moves in and out without any noise or scratching, and so I think we're in pretty good shape. And someone who actually stored this was pretty smart, and they put a piece of cardboard on here with a note that says "Leave this in place so you don't ruin the speaker," which I have. I've never taken that off.
So I first found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and this is explaining. So I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it explains how electrodynamic. So I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it's explaining electrodynamic speakers. I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it explains electrodynamic speakers in a lot more detail than I actually knew about. I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it really quite explains how field coil speakers work and how they're wired. I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it kind of outlines how. I found this posting at antiqueradios.com. It's a discussion about field coil speakers and what their wire looks like. I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it is a discussion about field coil speakers. I found this posting over at antiqueradios.com, and it explains how field coil speakers are wired.